you would lead the flag salute, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Glauser,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Here.
Mayor Long.
Here. So now is the time for oral comments from the public. You're going to see some directions on your screen if you would like to zoom into our meeting. It will tell you our meeting ID and our password, and then you can follow the instructions on the screen. We're going to give you a couple minutes to do that. We'll probably like a minute to do that. If someone does call in and they kind of miss the public comment part, Sienna will let us know so that you can actually share your comments with the council. I know this isn't ideal, but it's what we've got stuck with for now. So if you're not Zoom savvy or you don't have a device, there's a phone number to call at the very bottom of the screen. I always have to start my timer on my phone while we're doing this because it feels 10 seconds feels like 5 minutes. Anyone, Sienna?
No calls.
All right, we will move on to our consent calendar. We have 12 items, including our monthly reports from, we have our city council minutes, and then we have our monthly reports from our administrative, community development, finance, parks and rec, police, public works, river lodge, report of disbursements, call for a municipal election to be held on November 3rd, and approve the Deputy Public Works Director, Kevin Carter, as an authorized signer for the city of Fortuna with U.S. Bank, and continuance of the declaration of a local emergency due to COVID-19. Does anyone wish to pull any of the items?
I'd like to pull 5 and 7, but just for the purposes of making a comment.
Okay. I also want to pull number 5. So, all right, Mike, what have you got?
Well, I just wanted to say that for the parks and with the street crew working with them on the medians, they look awesome. Got everything prepped for the graduation and all, but I usually walk in the park every day, and I have to tell you that they look really sharp. They've done a fantastic job of taking care of them and prepping them, getting them ready for use, even though our special events season and a lot of things aren't running according to schedule as they usually are. The parks are just in great shape, and I wanted to thank them for that. And that's all I have.
I'll chime in on number 5 before we go to number 7. I just noticed in Cameron's staff report that he had a thank you in there to Auto Expo for the pavilion floor, and apparently we have had several donations to our parks, and I would just like Cameron to maybe list those off so we can make sure we thank everybody that has given donations.
Sure, thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. Good evening. Yeah, I just want to touch on some donations that we've recently had from some local civic groups. First one you already mentioned, we had Auto Expo really reached out this year and extended their hand. They purchased 4 or 5 gallon buckets of really high quality hardwood floor polyurethane. So we were able to apply 2 coats of that to the pavilion floor. It looks amazing. They also donated 2 canopies or easy ups, folding canopies for our summer fun programs or summer camp programs for when it gets hot. Typically we go over to Newburgh Park when the Auto Expo and rodeo is happening. So they purchased those for when we're over there, so we can get into the shade a little bit more. And they also donated 2 really nice stainless steel Koala brand baby changing stations, diaper changing stations that we are going to install in the Roner Park bathrooms. So I want to thank Expo for that. We also had Sunrise Rotary donated 2 concrete cornhole sets, which we are looking to install this week at Newburgh Park. So that'll be a great addition to Newburgh and the sports complex. And they also donated 8 Stay on the Trail signs. They're nice redwood signs made by Redwood Laser, hand painted, handmade signs that we'll put in the forest here shortly. And then we also had Redwood Capital Bank recently donated $1,000 to our summer camp program so that we can purchase additional janitorial or sanitary supplies. And then finally, just last week, we had Melanie Williams. She's a business owner. She owned a business called Bikes There, where she would rent out fleets of bikes, and she's kind of getting out of that business and more kind of a bike advocate. And she really liked what we were doing out here with our bike advocacy. So she donated all 7 of her children's bikes. They're really nice bikes. They're used, but they're giant brand bicycles. So we were just able to acquire those late last week that we can use for summer fun and other youth programs for kids to be able to ride bikes who maybe don't have those. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank those people. I won't take up much more time, but I really appreciate those groups really reaching out to Parks and Rec this year and lending a hand.
Okay, thanks, Cameron, for that list. That's amazing. You know, we're struggling through all this COVID-19 stuff, but our community still is as giving as always. So number 7, Mike.
I just the last couple of weeks, the road street maintenance crew has been out touching up, doing painting, and driving through town, you notice the fresh paint. And if and when we do get a tourist season, as we get visitors into town, they will be able to see the markings and the crosswalks especially, and things look really fresh and bright, and it's looking great out there for that too. And that's it.
Okay, anyone else? If not, we need a motion.
Mayor Long, we do have someone from the public who's joined the meeting. We can check to see if she has a public comment.
Okay, please do.
Laurel, are you there?
Hi, yes.
Do you have a public comment for the council?
Not on an issue that you're discussing right now? No, because I just joined. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. So we passed the point for public comments that were items outside of the agenda, but I can check with the mayor and see when it would be appropriate time, if you wouldn't mind holding, please.
Sure, fine. Thank you.
When would be an appropriate time?
If that's what she's got, let us make our motion for the consent calendar and then go back to her.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Okay, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. You want to do a roll call?
Let's do a roll call.
Okay.
Councilmember Glosser,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. Okay, let's take public comment from us.
Thank you for waiting. Laurel, are you there? Laurel?
There we go.
There
Sorry.
you go. That's okay.
It's high tech.
Yes.
Right. I just, I sent an email mid-afternoon today to Mr. Perry, again, as a follow-up to our discussion about the reaction to George Floyd's death and the recent discussions about police, how do I say this? Excessive force issues. And I was asking him some questions about that. noticing that Eureka Police Department posted their review of their excessive force findings on Friday on their website, and I wondered if Fortuna was going to be doing anything similar to that. I know when I had talked to Mr. Perry before, you have a new police chief or are in the process of getting a new police chief, and he had mentioned talking with that new police chief about possible reactions for the public in Fortuna to recent events. And so I'm just letting you know that I'm interested in that. That's it.
Okay, thank you for calling.
You're welcome.
Does anyone wish to pull any of the items?
And Mayor Long, I would say I received the email this afternoon and I will be responding to Ms. Farnham.
Okay, thank you, Merritt. All right, moving on to city council business. Our item A is authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Synagro WWT Inc. for cleaning services for the, how do you say it, anaerobic digester maintenance project, resolution 2020-20. So staff report looks like Kevin.
Good evening, council. It's my pleasure to present this first business item this evening. As stated before, we are requesting that the council adopt resolution 2020-20, authorizing city manager to enter into a contract with Synagro for cleaning service of the anaerobic digester maintenance project. The wastewater treatment plant has one anaerobic digester installed and activated in 2006. The digester accomplishes two vital services: reducing solids level in the system and providing methane gas for electrical cogeneration. It's a very vital part of the city's infrastructure. And I just want to kind of remind everybody out there that the end product that we end up making is a Class A exceptional quality compost, and it's given away to the community about twice a year, just as a quick reminder of that. In order for the anaerobic digester to function as intended, it's necessary to drain and clean it out on a periodic basis, typically 3 to 10 years. It's now been about 13 years without having completed this essential maintenance task. We are somewhat under capacity, so it's not like it should have happened earlier. Now is the time that it needs to be cleaned out and inspected and determined whether or not the proper coating that to keep it maintained and operating at its best capacity and its best function. Wastewater treatment staff is working to transfer an unused tank with large orifice diffusers for the temporary aerobic treatment of limited amounts of solids handling during the cleaning, inspection, and coating of the digester. I just want to reemphasize that staff has been working for the last couple months on recommissioning basically some older parts of the system to try to use some of the old aerobic style digestion to try to extend the amount of time that we have in between the cleaning, inspection, and coating. Therefore, we are requesting that the council find it that is in the interest of the public that the city enter into contract with Synagro WWT Inc. for the dewatering and cleaning portion of the anaerobic digester maintenance project as soon as possible. And the reason that we're going for this resolution as opposed to full formal bidding is and consulting with our engineers and consultants. It's a very specialized process, as you can imagine, and targeting highly qualified, good service providers. And it's not like general contracting. Typically, there's a lot of things that need to be brought into consideration, makes them very specialized. So with that, I will open it up for any comments or any questions that you may have.
Does anyone have any questions for Kevin? Hearing none, we'll open it for public comment. Again, if you can follow the instructions on your screen, you can comment on this item. Anybody call in, Sienna?
No comments, no calls.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go back to the council. We can entertain a motion.
Well, let's all hold off. Madam Mayor, I would like to come forward to help you out. I'd like to
Okay.
make a motion to adopt resolution 2020-20 and authorize the city manager to enter in a contract with Synagro WWT Incorporated for digester, dewater, and cleaning services for the anaerobic digester maintenance project, and read it by title only.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Sienna?
Resolution 2020-20, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fortuna, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Synagro WWT Inc. for cleaning services for the anaerobic digester cleaning project without formal competitive bidding. Councilmember Glauser,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. All right, our next item is a public hearing to consider adoption of a mitigated negative declaration of environmental impact, California Environmental Quality Act, which is CEQA, findings and mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the wastewater treatment and effluent percolation system upgrade project. Liz, you have a staff report?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. So the purpose of this agenda item is to consider the environmental review under CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act. The city is designated as the lead agency under CEQA, so the council's role is to consider and potentially adopt the mitigated negative declaration for the project. As far as presenting the project, it's my understanding that the project has been presented to you previously by the Public Works and Engineering departments. So I'm just going to go over it really briefly. So the project involves development of a treated effluent subsurface percolation field on the west side of the Eel River, and also supporting infrastructure located at the city's existing wastewater treatment plant. And in this project, the treated effluent would be pumped from the existing treatment plant under the Eel River through a directionally drilled pipeline to a subsurface disposal system on the west side of the river. Improvements at the treatment plant include a new pump station and conveyance piping to support the new percolation field. The project will result in replacing the city's existing percolation plant at the wastewater treatment plant by creating a greater separation from the Eel River. The site will be approximately 2,800 feet from the west side of the water's edge, which is more than 15 times further than the existing perk ponds. So this will address compliance issues with regards to direct discharge into the Eel River, and it will also address the quality of the effluent, mainly nitrogen levels. So I'm going to put on a PowerPoint. There's only a few slides just to kind of give a reminder and an overview of the project. So this is the overview of the wastewater treatment plant, all of the existing facilities here. And then mainly what we're interested in is the percolation pond. And this is where the summer discharge originates from. And you can see it's pretty close to the Eel River. And so this is.
Liz, we don't have, I'm not seeing anything. Is anyone seeing anything on their screen?
Oh, you know what? I opened it up and I didn't hit share.
Okay.
Let's see. Share. Okay, here we go.
There we go.
Got it?
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, here, this is the existing treatment plant on Dinsmore Drive, and the perk pond is located here in really close proximity to the Eel River, and this is not desirable, and the city wants to eliminate this. So the project will create the pipeline underneath the river. On this slide, the treatment plant is here in the upper right of the screen. And this is the pipeline that would be directionally drilled across the river, over land, and then this is the infiltration area where the perk pond, or the not the perk pond, the disposal system. And then also, so you can see the Eel River here, and then this is the Ferndale Bottoms. So you can see some of the riparian forest, and the gravel bar is here. So it'll cross those areas. And then further to the west is the Ferndale Bottoms. A couple other project components include, this is the access road to the new site, and that will involve minimal grading. And then this is the construction phase pipe staging area. So those are all of the components. And this is just a cross section profile view of the subsurface percolation system. And you can see that an existing grade. So there will be some grading to a certain elevation to create a level surface. And this is the percolation, the trench, and the pipe, which is a perforated pipe to allow the effluent to go into this. I think it's really mostly a gravel base that will allow the effluent to be dispersed. And I think the next slide shows the direction of disbursement is generally towards the northwest, so it doesn't even flow in the direction of the river. So that's a really good situation for the city. And the dark lines are the property lines, and it's an approximately 60-acre parcel, I believe. And then the perk area, I think, is about approximately 2 acres. So just a couple of other components. A temporary construction easement. I think that's the line that I showed you, the pipeline, temporary pipeline staging area. And then I showed you the access roads. This side on the west side of the river is located in the county jurisdiction. So they have been involved, they've been notified and consulted. It will require some permits from them, a grading permit and a conditional use permit. Their zoning is agriculture exclusive. So this is not in conflict of that. They're in agreement with the project. So that should be a straightforward permit. And then other permits that will be required include a 401 from the Regional Water Quality Control Board, permits from the State Water Resource Control Board, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the State Lands Commission. And the reason I point that out is because as part of the CEQA process, there's normally consultation with those agencies during the preparation of the initial study. And so they're on board, if they've been consulted and had input and comment on the project, then they're on board with the project generally. And in this case, they are, because it's going to improve the water quality, the effluent discharge into the Eel River. So since the percolation system upgrade is defined as a project under CEQA, so the lead agency must consider the potential for environmental impacts, and that's the purpose of the initial study, to review all the environmental categories and to disclose to the council and the public what those potential, if there are any potential impacts, and if they can be reduced to less than significant with mitigation created for those potential impacts. And so the initial study was circulated in accordance with CEQA for 30 days from May 5th to June 4th. And during the public review period, the city received one written comment from the Coastal Commission that's attached in your staff report. And then the city did respond. And their concerns, they had questions and concerns about the activities in the floodplain and how that would impact the percolation system and impacts the future sea level rise and groundwater levels, and also construction related impacts. The city, actually GHD's environmental consultant, prepared the response. I think they did a really good job describing the engineering methods that will protect the percolation field from flooding and the sea level rise. and then the construction methods that will protect the site and surrounding resources. If you have any questions about that, but I won't get into the details of that. And then also the Coastal Commission will be a permitting agency. This project is located in the coastal zone, so it will require a coastal development permit. That's an application to the Coastal Commission. And in the letter, it describes, the measures that the city, through engineering and design can take to alleviate those concerns. And so those will be also addressed in the application to the Coastal Commission. So I think that letter did a good job of just identifying their questions and responding to them sufficiently. So the categories that are reviewed in the initial study on the slide are the categories which have discussion in the initial study and found to have no chance of potentially significant impacts. So for these categories, mitigation measures are not required. And that includes aesthetics, agriculture, energy, greenhouse gas emissions, hazards, land use, mineral resources, noise, population and housing, public services, recreation, transportation, tribal cultural resources, utilities, and wildfire. And then the categories which were identified to have a potentially significant impact, but these were reduced to an insignificant level with the mitigation that was incorporated. And that includes air quality, and that's really for construction related dust control. So measures include site watering, covering the trucks, and sweeping the streets. And those are pretty standard measures. Biological resources. So the site, as you saw on the aerial overhead, is located in an undeveloped area. And it does have some riparian woodlands, riparian forest, mainly black cottonwood, alders, and willows. And you saw the gravel bar and agricultural fields. So that woodland has a significant, it's a resource for plants, birds, migratory birds, nesting, and things like that. So that was a concern. And the mitigation measures in order to ensure that there aren't any, impacts as a result of the project will require pre-construction surveys for special status plant species, for protected amphibians and reptiles, for migratory and nesting birds if construction occurs during the nesting season, and for special status bats. So that the pre-construction surveys will identify if there are any nesting bird species, plants and things like that that can be avoided or protected. And the riparian and black cottonwood vegetative community will also be protected through avoidance or replacement of black cottonwood trees. So we know the general location of the site, but the final surveying of the boundaries are not known. And so at that time, if the project can't avoid any of those species, then there would be replacement or some kind of compensation, and that includes for wetlands as well. Cultural resources includes archaeological and tribal resources, and there was a site survey done for that. Also, tribal consultation was conducted. No resources were discovered during the survey, and mitigation for those resources would include following protocols during construction to be aware of the potential for those resources, and then if any are found, there's a protocol to stop activities and consult with the appropriate parties to lay out a plan for how to deal with those resources. And the geology and soils, that is for paleontological survey if any of those resources are found during construction. And then finally, the hydrology and water quality. So water quality will be protected through BMPs during construction to prevent silt and runoff from entering the waterways. And also there will be developed a contingency plan for any failure during the horizontal directional drilling and to prevent slurry from entering the river. So the mitigation monitoring and reporting program is attached. I just gave you a really brief summary, but the program does have the detailed descriptions on how those measures will be carried out and the timing for them and the responsible party. So actually that's all I have. That's a pretty brief summary. There's a lot of information in the initial study as you saw. You know, as far as the initial study goes, if you have any questions about that, let me know. I think GHD did a really thorough job on that initial study. They coordinated with all of the agencies, and as you saw, you know, we only had the one letter. So, you know, I think the agencies do see that the project improves the health of the river by relocating the city's effluent, and so that's all I have. Oh, one more slide. So the staff recommendation is that you adopt the resolution 2020-21, and that would adopt the mitigated negative declaration for the project. It would adopt the CEQA findings, which are required by CEQA, that demonstrates that the procedures have been followed and considered, and then adopting the mitigation monitoring and reporting program. So I'll hand that back to the mayor and the council.
Thank you, Liz. Does anyone have any questions? Hearing none right now, we'll open it up for public comment. Once again, if you want to follow the instructions on the screen and comment on this item, please do so. Do we have any calls, Tiana?
No calls, Mayor.
Okay, with that, if we don't have any more questions, we need a motion.
Madam Mayor, this is Dean Glauser again. I would be honored to make a motion to adopt resolution 2020-21 and read it by title only.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Tiana?
Resolution 2020-21, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fortuna adopting a mitigated negative declaration of environmental impact, CEQA findings, and a mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the wastewater treatment and effluent percolation system upgrade. Councilmember Glauser?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent?
Yes.
Mayor Long?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can anyone tell what page our next item's on? Approve a temporary fee schedule change for 2020 summer camp programs, resolution 2020-22.
301
300, yeah.
or 300. Excuse me.
Okay, I'm clearing the twos, so thank you. I don't like not being able to go to my iPad and hit my little buttons. Okay, here we go. And Cameron, you have the staff report on this one.
Yes, I do. Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. So this is something that we discussed 2 weeks ago at the City Council meeting on June 1st. So I'll just go ahead and kind of summarize the staff report here. So we submitted a reopening plan to the Humboldt County Public Health under child care, and that was approved to operate our program with some restrictions and safety parameters in place. As a part of those restrictions, our ratios had to be diminished from a normal 1 to 15 staff to child ratio to a 1 to 10. And then our kiddie camp was affected just due to space in the rec hall. So we had to diminish our typical numbers for that component of our program as well. So with that said, that is, we'd be looking at a tightening of the budget and a loss of revenue because we're basically going to require close to the same number of staff as usual. So I presented the city council 2 weeks ago with the 2019 numbers, which are shown in the staff report, along with 3 different scenarios, and what the difference would be, how far in the red basically we would be with each scenario. And scenario 3 at the time was discussed and selected as the best option for weekly rates for each family, and that's $150 per week, whether you're in summer fun or kiddie camp. And the maximum numbers that we can accommodate currently are 60 children. That's about half of what we can typically accommodate. So following that discussion, if this is adopted, the fees will go into effect starting next week. So next Monday, June 22nd. Camp actually started today, the 15th, so we couldn't adopt this today. We go into effect today, so it'll start next week. So our current fees for this week are the same as they've usually been, same as 2019 numbers. But the anticipated loss of revenue will be slightly greater on the table because we didn't include, when I included that table originally, it had all 10 weeks. So with it just being 9 weeks of the program, there'd be a little bit more of an impact. I estimated about $5,600, as you'll see in the fiscal impact side of the staff report. However, I will say that our participation numbers are lower than what we would have hoped. Right now, we're at about half of that capacity. We're at about 30 children currently. And so we will make adjustments to staff and if we don't start to see those numbers rise, but I'm pretty confident because we were just able to get approved and just able to offer this program that we should start to see those numbers get closer to that 60-person cap. So anyway, the fiscal impact will be a little bit greater than that 5,600 that was mentioned in the fiscal impact. And of course, there's the resolution to go along with this to adopt the fees temporarily just for the summer session. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Cameron. Anyone have any questions? Hearing none, once again, we'll open public comment. Please follow the instructions on the screen. Do we have any calls, Sienna?
No, there are none.
Okay. We need a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'm on a roll.
You are.
I would be honored to make a motion to adopt resolution 2020-82 and read it by title only.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Sienna?
Resolution 2020-22, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fortuna establishing a temporary schedule of fees for the summer fun and kiddie camp recreation programs in 2020. Councilmember Glosser,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. Thank you, Sienna. Our next item is to public hearing to approve the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 budget, resolution 2020-23. Staff report, Aaron.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. So the fiscal year 2021 budget is presented to council for adoption consideration during a time of extreme uncertainty and anxiety in our community. This year's budget process was much different than in years past and required constant reevaluation of our revenue projections as new data became available. The effects of COVID-19 and the corresponding shelter-in-place restrictions to slow the virus's spread has upended the businesses in our community and the economic activity they are so importantly a part of. City Council and staff held 3 special budget workshops to discuss the economic fallouts associated with COVID-19 and the direct impacts to the city's budget. The first workshop was held on May 11th, where the preliminary proposed budget was presented and the general fund expenditures were reviewed with council in depth. This initial budget estimated an approximate 10% decline in general fund tax and license revenue from last year's budget. At the second workshop held on May 19th, the city's enterprise funds were reviewed in depth. The city's enterprise funds consist of the water fund, wastewater fund, and transit fund. And an enterprise fund is a self-supporting governmental fund that sells goods and services to the public for a fee. Monies generated from these funds cannot be used for general fund purposes. These funds rely more heavily on service charges and less on tax and fee revenue, resulting in less volatility than the general fund, meaning they did not require as many reductions to expenditures as the general fund. At the third workshop held on June 3rd, following additional follow-up with HDL, the city's sales tax consultant, the city provided 3 sales tax revenue projection scenarios, 2 of which were lower than what was included in the first version of the proposed budget discussed with council on May 11th. Staff and council elected to go with option number 2. This option estimated that the effects of the shelter-in-place orders on consumer spending would last through at least June. This change decreased the general fund sales tax revenue and Measure E transaction and use tax revenue by an additional $125,000. The current annual operating budget includes total reduction in tax and license revenue of $420,400, or 14.2% as compared to last fiscal year's budget. The reduction in revenue forced staff to further look at reducing expenditures to better match the city's revenues. The changes discussed with the council included decreasing the police department remodel project, and that is decided to be brought back to council for further discussion later in the fiscal year once the cost study has been completed, and then increasing the Chamber of Commerce support to include River Lodge usage. In addition to those changes, a couple of service alternatives were discussed during the June 3rd meeting. Those included freezing the vacant street maintenance worker 2 position for 5 months and eliminating the police office supervisor position following her retirement effective July 15th. Reductions from last year's budget were made to just about every facet of the general fund, including capital improvement projects, capital outlay items, supplies, professional services, freezing positions, furloughing positions, and eliminating positions altogether. In total, 4 positions were frozen for the entire year. 1 position was frozen for 5 months, 1 position was furloughed for 3 months, and 2 positions were eliminated. In summary, the general fund and Measure E fund have a combined total operating uses of $6.8 million. This is approximately $400,000 less than last year. The good news is Measure E, the city's 3/4 cent transaction and use tax monies, will continue to fund 2 police officer detectives, a community services officer, 1 part-time code compliance officer, and 1 parks and recreation director. In addition to these positions, Measure E monies will fund the abatement program, storm drain maintenance projects, street maintenance projects, transit assistance for seniors, and other programs. The general fund and Measure E fund have a combined total of $6.6 million in operating revenues for fiscal year 2021. This represents a deficit position of almost $200,000. So in order to provide a balanced budget for the general fund and Measure E fund for fiscal year 2021, $200,000 will be required to be pulled from general fund reserve, unrestricted reserves. Additional information on the city's fiscal year 2021 budget can be found in the attached budget document. And as discussed with council at the special budget workshops, staff will be bringing back a first quarter budget update for discussion with the council once the data is received. First quarter data is received from the state, estimated to be sometime around November. So with that, that is my budget presentation, and I will go ahead and open it up to questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Aaron? If not, we'll take public comment now. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to comment on the budget.
Mayor Long, we do have one public comment on the line.
Okay, if you want to go ahead and put it through.
Go ahead, Walt.
Good evening, Mayor Long and council members. My name is Walt Wilson. I'm a resident of Fortuna. I have a question. I may have misheard, if that's a good word, Aaron's excellent presentation. So my question really is directed to Aaron. Did you say that Measure E is funding a part-time Parks and Recreation director? That's my question. Thank you.
Mayor Long, would you like me to answer that question?
Sure, go ahead.
So Measure E is funding a part-time code compliance officer and one full-time Parks and Recreation director. Sorry if there was confusion with that.
Thank you, Aaron. Are there any other calls, Sienna?
No, there are not.
Okay, with that, we need a motion.
Do I get to roll with it again? Madam Mayor, I'm back for a time. I'd like to be honored to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-23 and provide direction to staff to bring back Police Department model project for consideration once the planning study is done, and to read it by title only.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Sienna?
Resolution 2020-23, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fortuna adopting the City of Fortuna's annual operating budget for fiscal year 20-21. Councilmember Glauser,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Moving on to our public, let's see, approve the fiscal year 2020-21 5-year capital improvement program. The staff report from Kevin Carter.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Each year, the CIP is updated and used to identify necessary infrastructure improvements, such as to coordinate the financing and timing of improvements in a way that maximizes the return to the public. The program works as a guide for identifying and estimating current and future fiscal year requirements to maintain the city's infrastructure, such as roads, sidewalks, streetlights, sewer and water mains, parks, community centers, and city buildings. Attached, you will find the fiscal year 2021 5-year CIP. A workshop with the City Council was held on May 11th, 2020. At that meeting, staff provided a summary of various projects and answered questions presented by Council. A presentation was also made to the Planning Commission at its regular meeting on May 26th, at which time the Commission found the plan to be consistent with the current general plan. Staff is currently working with Finance Department on the completion of the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget, and staff has continued to work with the Measure E Committee on designation of projects which are consistent with the measure and are included in this document. The only change from our workshop on this final draft is the reduction of the funding for the police facility from $300,000 to $30,000, and which time we will be moving forward with that project, and we will return to council once we have a better, more defined project and a better presentation for you. With that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on either the plan or the process.
Does anyone have any questions for Kevin? Hearing none, we'll open it up for public comment. If you would like to comment on this item, please follow the instructions on the screen.
No calls.
No calls? Okay. Thank you, Sienna. So with no public comment, we will close that item and we're ready for a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt the fiscal year 2021 capital improvement program and appropriate funding and inclusion of the fiscal 2021 projects into the 2021 overall budget.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second, Sienna.
Councilmember Glauser,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. You. Our next item is the approval of the full and part-time classification and pay rate schedules for fiscal year 2020 to 2021, Resolution 2020-24 and Resolution 2020-25. Staff report, Sienna.
Yes, last but not least, honorable mayor and council members, the full and part-time fiscal year 2021 pay rate schedules are being proposed for your consideration this evening. The Human Resources Department is responsible for maintaining the schedules based on class specifications, and full and part-time schedules consist of pay ranges for each class. Human Resources works directly with finance staff to ensure the amounts listed in the schedules are accurate and reflect any changes in rates as a result of negotiations or cost of living adjustments on an annual or as needed basis. Pay rate schedules are included in the printed budget. However, just like the city's fee schedules, the pay rate schedules are individual items adopted by separate resolutions. Currently, there are no proposed changes to the current pay rate schedules outside of the cost of living adjustments in the current MOUs. And in addition, with the anticipation of minimum wage increasing by $1 an hour in January 2021, staff will return to council at that time with an updated version of the part-time schedule. And at this time, staff is recommending that council adopt resolutions 2020-24 and 2020-25, adopting the full and part-time classification and pay rate schedules for fiscal year 2021.
Thank you, Sienna. Does anyone have any questions? I read something about the governor possibly pushing out the minimum wage increase this year. Has anyone else seen anything? Okay, well, I guess we'll wait and see if that actually happens.
Okay.
All right, we'll open up public comment. If anyone would like to comment on this item, please follow the instructions on the screen. Receiving no calls, we will entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, this is Dean Glauser. I would like to individually do each one at a time. So we'll start off, I make the motion to adopt resolution 2020-24 and read it by title only.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Sienna.
Resolution 2020-24, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fortuna adopting the full-time classification and pay rate schedules for fiscal year 2021. Councilmember Glauser,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes, thank you, Sienna.
Okay, and piggyback on the second one, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 2020-25, read it by title only.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Sienna.
Resolution 2020-25, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fortuna adopting the part-time classification and pay rate schedules for fiscal year 2020-21. Councilmember Glauser,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes, thank you. That wraps up our city business as far as all of the motions. We now managers report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Long. As customary, I'd like to review some of the upcoming meetings dates. Our next council meeting will be on July 6th. The next planning commission date will be on June 23rd. Next Measure E meeting is still scheduled for September 15th. And the next Roner Community Recreation and Park District meeting will be on July 1st. Just have a few items for my verbal report. The first one is that staff completed reopening plans, and we have reopened City Hall, the police department, and the parks office to the public as of June 8th. So those buildings are open, and we are receiving the public at them. We received a request from Food for People to assist with a food distribution at on June 17th within the city. So we'll be providing one of our officers, and I believe that is at the Lutheran Church. Our city clerk may be able to correct me. I think I had it down here, the Seventh-day Adventist, but
It's the Seventh-day Adventist on Ronerville Road.
Thank you, the Seventh-day Adventist. I am working on materials for a ballot measure to extend the city supplemental sales tax, and we expect to bring those to council with the resolution on July 6th. And so we may also request that council participate in a special meeting before that time. The ballot materials are due to the county on August 7th. So we have a fairly short amount of time to get that done. So we'll be focusing on this over the next couple of weeks. And again, bringing that as an agenda item on the July 6th meeting. As you may have noticed, the construction is underway on a number of projects in the city, including the Jameson Creek Culvert project on Ronerville Road. So that road closure was made, and the Mercer Fraser has started construction on that project. There was a changeover of the water last night. That went well, so we expect that project to move quite rapidly once the final utilities are relocated. You may have noticed also that there's a lot of new sidewalk on Lawndale Drive, and that there's changes happening in the parking lot of South School. And so that is part of our Safe Route to School project. And that, again, is a grant funded project from the Alternative Transportation Program in Caltrans. That's a project that the city's been working towards since submitting a grant application in 2014. So it's great to see that project finally being constructed, and the contractor is moving along rather rapidly. You might also notice that a number of locations around town, there are rectangular rapid flashing beacons, like the intersection of Senestrora Way and Ronerville Road, a number of them on Main Street, and there's a new pedestrian crossing on Fortuna Boulevard that all have these new enhanced signs and rectangular flashing beacons. So 3 projects underway. We have a few more projects that will be starting fairly soon. One of them is the Zone 4-6 water intertie project, as well as the micro slurry pavement maintenance project. So a lot happening and a lot of projects moving forward. Recently, we had a request from Pacific Gas and Electric to rent the pavilion for the use as a community resource center in the event of public safety power shutoffs. We were able to come to an agreement to that with PG&E. They compensated the city for signing a contract, and they've agreed to pay above what the rental rate would normally be for those buildings during public safety power shutoffs. And it would be a resource center where they have charging facilities, snacks, water, and things that people might not otherwise have during a planned power shutoff. So a couple of things. One, it did provide a financial benefit to the city, and it'll also provide a resource to our citizens and have a place to go in the event that power needs to be shut off, like it was a couple of times last year. So with that, that's all I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone, Merritt?
Year when they technically should be committed and be able to accomplish what they just promised.
Yeah, we heard that their test went positive, and they have there's a good indication that they will be able to operate in island mode. And I think they really wanted to make sure that citizens were taken care of in the event of a public safety power shutoff. So I think they're being cautious. They wanted to have a fallback. So I think our hope is that they will be able to operate in island mode. But if for some reason they can't, or we have power shutoff beforehand, now they have a place where they can provide a resource room. So I think it's a good move for the city. And if it never comes to fruition and there is no need for it, I think that's even a better thing.
Well, you also have the pavilion for the OES FEMA location for any kind of cataclysmic event. So it's actually going to serve some good benefit for the community.
Yeah, and part of that is PG&E would come in with generators, and then rather than having a tent, I think they felt like they could provide a better situation than being in a tent in a parking lot, that they could provide a more comfortable location.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Merritt? All right, moving on to future agenda items. Does anyone have anything? Seeing none, we'll move on to city council reports. Dean.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Nothing to report, Redwood Coast Energy Authority. Their meeting will be next week, if I'm not mistaken. Merritt, can you provide the community and especially the residents on Acacia what the status is of the problematic mobile home transient people living there?
Yeah, so there was a residence that was a subject of a nuisance abatement last year. The city spent quite a bit of money cleaning that building up. There was an inspection warrant that the city had some concerns about the livability of that at that address and that home that was a subject to past nuisance abatement. So the city did serve an inspection warrant, and as a result, the property was red tagged and found it uninhabitable. Subsequent to that, the building was boarded up by our public works crews, and our police are maintaining patrols in that area to make sure people don't end up in the building. We have had some reports of people being in there, so that building will remain uninhabited, and we'll keep an eye out up there and make sure that that's followed until the owners can bring it back up to an acceptable standard.
When I talked to you, there was also discussion of some items found inside the structure that had belonged to victims' theft. Is that an ongoing thing that you really can't give a status on yet?
Yeah, so the city's proceeding and trying to move probate forward on that property as soon as possible so that whoever the rightful owner is can acknowledge and take responsibility for the property, or the property can be sold to pay for the past due amount for the nuisance abatement and taxes, et cetera. So it's a property that, again, it hasn't gone through probate. There's not a clear owner, and the city's working to accelerate the normal process for that property being disposed of to the rightful owner.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Dean?
Okay. Oh yeah, I got more. Each of us has made comments over the last series of months about how beneficial our employees have been with the secure in place, and how they've had to adapt, how they've had to succumb to the restrictions. But as we can see, there is an end of the tunnel. I can see, and eventually, maybe another 3-4 months, we might get to the finality of seeing our motels open back up again to get a TOT. And we might be able to have events happening at River Lodge. But in the meantime, we have to listen to the Department of Health and Human Services, Dr. Frankovich, and follow in suit of what she says we can do or what we can't. So, from my viewpoint to the public, I know you are frustrated. I've been frustrated immensely. I know the younger people have been, I could probably say, given free rein to do whatever they want to do, but the parents are the ones that are responsible. If you are a person that has medical issues and you fear for going into the public, there is no person forcing you, an elected official or anybody forcing you to go to the public to do something against your will. That's your choice, guaranteed by the Constitution. But I ask everybody who does go out into the public, use common sense, as Dr. Frankovich, to the next level and the next level. And if you are a business, you have the right to require a client or a paying customer who attempts to come into your business to have restrictions that you require for your own personal safety as well as the others. So don't shy away from that. Require that of individuals, and if they get adamant about that, you got the police department, or have the right to refuse service to anyone. That's one of the things about being a business. It's wonderful. This is a suggestion to an appointed official, Dr. Frankovich. There are a lot of us in the community that have limited hearing capacities. And when you are doing an interview or a recording to be given as a public announcement, and there's only one other person in your office, please take your face mask off, because what you're doing is it sounds like you're talking into your armpit, and I can't hear anything. It's muffled. It is not legible. Remove the face mask, please, and allow a lot of us in the community to be able to understand what you're saying. Otherwise, your message is zero. Let's see. Hey, I saved the last for the best. God bless America. God bless our troops. May all of you be safe, whether you're in the police department, Army, Navy, EMP, hospital workers. We want you to be safe. We want to be able to go back home, and we want you to have a wonderful life. So with that, Madam Mayor, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Dean. Mike?
Well, we had a couple of busy weeks there. We actually had our League of California Cities Policy Committee meetings via Zoom, as so many meetings are these days. But few of the items on the agenda were a update on the governor's budget, which is now being reconciled with a budget that the legislature passed and sent to him about an hour ago, I think it was. And there'll be some interesting discussions on that and reconciling the two. Other things were legislative updates on some things that they were doing which infringed on local control. One was like for charging stations, they wanted to pass a bill that would have made it to where if there was not approval or any word back in 15 days, it would be considered approved and they could just go ahead and set it up. Not taking into account the things that the COVID-19 has done to our ability to work and the time it takes to get things done, period. So that's just one item, but it's some of the things that the League of California Cities and the Policy Committee looks at and sends along suggestions and position paperwork. Also had a HCOG meeting a couple of weeks ago and gotten an introduction to the new mobility on demand bus plan for Redwood Transit and the city of Fortuna and Points South. And we have another HCOG meeting coming up in this coming Thursday where we will look at this again and look at adopting a draft operation plan. And I'll be checking in with staff on how they feel about things and how it will affect the city of Fortuna and our residents, as well as residents in Rio del Scotia and Ferndale. So that anything there, but I would like to say that again, how staff has done with taking care of things these last few months. And there are a lot of projects going on when you think about it. And this coming, I think it's tomorrow and Wednesday, the 12th Street as well as Main Street on and off ramps will be being worked on from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to throw one more little wrinkle in our plans for the day. So just ask that people, if they hear, be mindful tomorrow morning when you're getting ready to go to work, because your usual route may be impacted. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Jeremy?
I have nothing to report.
Huh?
All right, Tammy.
Had to turn everything back on here. I only have part of my report here with me, but I just wanted to respond to what Mike was talking about with the bus system for on demand. We had a big discussion on that at our Humboldt Transit Authority meeting, and that was consultants that did that presentation, and what they're presenting is not feasible. That probably won't go forward with, in fact, I'm pretty sure it's not going to go forward for Fortuna, both from the transit side and Fortuna side. It just doesn't appear like that would work. So we did have quite a big discussion on that, but it's not, it's not completely done yet. And the rest of my League of California Cities meeting, I will give my report on all of that stuff. We're still waiting for some information to come in. So next meeting, I'll have all that information. And that's all I have to report. Back to you, Sue.
Thank you, Tammy. So I have a reduct meeting on the 29th. So I missed the last one because we had a council meeting the same night. They put it on a different night than normal. I did get the go-ahead today on the fireworks for July 3rd. Since we don't have a council meeting between now and then, I thought I would just kind of throw that out there to the public so you have a little bit of something to look forward to. It will be a fireworks show only. There will be no gathering. There will be no access to the parks. If we have it at the park, the location's still up in the air, but wherever the fireworks are let off, we will not have a gathering and will not have access to the fields around it. So you will need to watch it from your homes, from your back deck, from your cars, and just try to, as best you can, follow the rules so that we don't make everybody mad. But if we do, we do. I don't know, whatever. But at least it's something. I just wanted to, I kept pushing and pushing. I just wanted us to be able to celebrate something because it's been so long and so hard. So hopefully this will go well and everyone won't be mad at us. But
Sue, can I ask, is it going to be the 3rd or the 4th that we do this?
the 3rd. It'll still be the 3rd, just like our normal tradition.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
A group of ladies got together and wanted to be able to have some youth speak out about some of the things that are happening in our America, and invited me to participate in that. And I know that it caused a lot of stress and a lot of tension in town, but I was really relieved and happy that it went off well. We had a few hundred people gather at the park, and some of our local young women of color and some of our other just people in the community were able to speak about their experiences and about their fears and about their hopes and dreams for the future. And it went really well. So I was very thankful that it did. And I was very thankful for all the people who came out and spoke. And I think that the conversation has been started, and now we just need to find some ways to continue that conversation, whether it's through some sort of groups at the high school or some kind of other organized manner to mediate, questions and answers and discussion. So I'm gonna hopefully keep looking for ways to do that, and hopefully we won't have to call it a protest in the future. So with that, I think that everyone's given their reports. We have a couple of closed session items. One is public employment pursuant to section 54957 of the California Government Code, title Department Head, Police Chief. And the next one is conference with labor negotiators. Agency designated representative is Merritt Perry, the city manager, and the unrepresented employee is the office supervisor for the Fortuna Police Department. If anyone would like to make any comments on either of those items before we adjourn to closed session, please follow the instructions on the screen. Receiving no calls, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session.
I make a motion that we adjourn to closed session.
Second the motion.
All right. A motion and a second. I think we can probably just do aye on this one. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.